Good morning. My name is Reverend Christine Dance, and it is my great honor to serve as the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers, all those who mother, all of those who have been nurturing and caring, and all of those who have mothers. The Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix strives to be a spiritual community for our time, focused on diverse theological perspectives, radical inclusion, and knowing that issues of justice and equity shape everything that we do. With a special awareness for those who have been historically marginalized, we welcome all, of every race, class, ethnicity, immigration status, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious background, mental and physical ability and disability. We welcome your whole self, your whole family, however you define it, into our worship as we build a community of kindness and caring and courage and hope. Our opening words are entitled On the Brink from the Reverend Leslie Takahashi of our UU congregation in Walnut Creek, California. All that we have ever loved and all that we have ever been stands with us on the brink of all that we aspire to create. A deeper peace, a larger love, a more embracing hope, a deeper joy in this life that we share. I invite you to grab your own chalice from home and grab it and join us as we recite our covenant and light our chalice together. Share out loud with me. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to share our strength in fellowship, thus do we covenant.
Good morning, all. I'm Benji Messer, music director. I wish we could gather in person, but being on this call is still a way of being together and remembering that we're all here. One of the lines in our opening hymn, Gather the Spirit, is our separate fires will kindle one flame. Let's hear the truth in that, even as we're separated. Feel free to sing with me or just to listen. The lyrics will be in the chat. Gather the Spirit, harvest the power. Our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of this hour. Our trials in this light appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. Here's the second verse. Gather the spirit of heart and mind, seeds for the sowing are laid in store, nurtured in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. And growing in all, gather the Spirit, growing in all, drawn by the moon and fed by the sun, winter to
Welcome. I'm Amy McClendon, and I'm wishing all of the mothers in our community a very happy Mother's Day today. We welcome you to our virtual worship. You are able to chat with our panelists, and there will be a time later in the service that you can share your joys and sorrows with us. We will read them out loud, and we will hold them in our hearts. As always, we invite you to check in on social media with the hashtag UUAnywhere. And after service, we'll be having our virtual coffee hour with breakout rooms. I hope you'll be able to join us. Now let me introduce our worship team. You've met Reverend Christine and our music director, Benji Messer, and myself. Today we also have with us Katie Resendez, our director of children's ministries. And behind the scenes, we have our AV team, Stephanie, Justin, and Lucia. Katie Quinn is our moderator today. I'd like to share a few announcements. We have a plethora of weekly activities going on in our community, from lunch with the minister, to evening vespers, to Death Cafe, and tons of programming for the children in our community. All of the program links and passwords are in our weekly e-newsletter, Compass, and you can sign up for Compass on our website. I also want to draw your attention to our civic engagement announcements in Compass. This week, we are focusing on a Unitarian Universalist-wide initiative called UU the Vote. There is a gathering about it next Tuesday afternoon, and we hope you can attend. Also next week, we have a new group starting that's focused on Buddhist practices. Buddhism reminds us of the ever-changing nature of life and gently instructs us to ground ourselves by living mindfully. Join the UUCP Buddhist Sangha on Zoom on Friday, May 15th at 7 p.m. for guided meditation, reading, and sharing. You can find the link in Tuesday's program Compass update. And finally, save the date. Our annual meeting will be after service on Sunday, June 14th. We'll be voting on our slates of leaders as well as on our budget. Last Friday's Compass had the slates for UUCP's board, the foundation board, and next year's nominating committee. Thank you to our hardworking nominating committee who got these slates together during these difficult times. And thank you to everyone who has said yes to leadership. Next week, we'll post the proposed budget, all with 30 days to review before the meeting. This week's offering is Share the Plate. This month, the Share the Plate team has decided to give the offering to the minister's discretionary fund. This is a fund for Reverend Christine to use at her discretion for the benefit of our congregation. In these times, it will go to help those in our congregational community whose incomes have been affected by the pandemic. There are needs now, and we anticipate that this may be the case for some time to come. Normally, this fund is refreshed by donations on Christmas Eve and by generous congregants, but we felt it was appropriate to share the plate today to help those of us in our community who may need it. We invite you at any time to donate. There's an easy link on our website. You can text UUCP $ to 72356 or send an offering via mail to the office. Thank you in advance for your generosity. And now I turn it over to Katie for Together Time.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Katie Resendez, and I'm the Director of Children's Ministry here at UUCP Phoenix. Today, I've been thinking about people who nurture and the ways that we're nurtured. And sometimes that might be a mom, like Mother's Day, and it might be an auntie or an uncle or a dad or a brother or a teacher. There's lots of different ways that we're nurtured. And one of the things that happens is sometimes we don't see the nurturing that's going on. We don't see what's happening. My mom was what nurtured me. She was the lead in my life. And one of the amazing things she did was introduce me to lots of other phenomenal adults and give me adults to look up to and figure out who I wanted to be and where I wanted to fit in. And one of them was a librarian. So when I was just about old enough to read, I had a woman in my life who loved books, and she helped me read my very first book ever. The very first book I ever read is one that you're probably familiar with the story of, but I'm going to tell it to you just in case you don't remember. There once was a family that had a huge farm in the middle of the prairie. The flat grassland was pretty much all they had. They had a small house, a barn, a root cellar, and some fences. There was a town, it's about 45 minutes away, a long road. The next nearest house was an old woman who lived by her own and was kind of grouchy and rode her bicycle everywhere. On that farm lived 2 grown-ups and a young girl, and they all worked together on that farm. Do you recognize the story yet? Not yet, huh? Well, as happens on the prairie, there was a huge storm that blew through, and it decimated the entire community. Houses were thrown every which way. Things were ruined. Crops were just terrible things happened. But in this little family, something even worse happened. You see, this young girl, in the middle of all the ruckus of the storm, got hit on the head. And when her family went to find her, she was completely unconscious. And they bundled her up and carried her to bed. And over days and days, they took care of her. And it was days of rebuilding, setting the house back to right, making sure the crops were okay, going out and collecting all the animals that had scattered. But through all of that hard farm work, they kept going back and checking on her and making sure that there was someone there to watch over her, making sure that her mouth didn't get too dry, and just in case she woke up, making sure that someone would be there with her. Can you imagine that space of waiting and taking care of someone and just hoping that they will be strong enough to come back to you? What that anxiety must have felt like and what that tension must have been. And still going on about their daily lives and trying to make the farm run, making sure that mean little old woman down the road. Why are the old women in stories always mean? I'm sure she wasn't mean all the time. But making sure that she was okay, making sure that things from town would be able to get there, and still going back to check on the girl and making sure that someone was with her so that she would heal. And she did. She woke up and she came to and looked around, and she was totally confused and disoriented. But the first thing she saw are the things that made her know she was where she belonged, and the things that told her she was right where she should be and that she was loved and cared for. And she even knew because in the midst of her concussion and her fever dreams, those nurturers in her life were there with her. And she wanted them to know that. So when she woke up and looked around and saw them looking over her bed, taking care of her, washing her forehead, she said, "Auntie Em, you were there? And Uncle Henry, you were there? You were all there, and it was the most amazing place." And maybe it was amazing because they were there with her and they were taking care of her all through that long, dark, hard time. We can nurture each other. Sometimes we focus on how just mothers are nurturers in the family, and it is true, many mothers do lots of nurturing. But there's so much nurturing that happens in our world, and so often we're called to nurture ourselves. And we are strong and we can do it. And don't forget today on all days of all of the ways that you can take care of yourself. Make sure that your forehead stays cool, your mouth stays nice and wet, and that all of those beautiful visions and adventures you go on, you have someone with you nurturing you. It's you. You are so powerful and you are so, so very loved.
Thank you, Katie. I love your stories. I love that they have a twist. And I just want to say, hey, Soup, you're doing a great job. So it is the time in our service when we share the joys and sorrows of our community. And being together, it is good to share and support each other and to connect. I want to invite you to send a private message to any of the panelists on Zoom, and I will read it with any joys in your life. If you want it to be private, just to us, please, and not share it out loud, please just put the word private at the beginning. And I won't say it out loud, but I'll hold it in my heart. And as you do that, and please enter it early instead of late. I'm not going to read them for forever, but I do know that it is Mother's Day. I want to wish all of those who play mothering roles in each other's lives a very, very happy Mother's Day. And mine is watching as well. So happy Mother's Day, Mom. I love you and I miss you. So we have Dylan from the Lifshitz family was named the top AP Calculus and Biology and US History student by his teachers at Sunny Slope High School this year. Mom, Dad, and all are proud. All three, Dylan? My goodness, you didn't save anything for anyone else. That's fantastic. So we have it's an email, but it's my mother's 95th Mother's Day, and her 95th birthday is tomorrow. Oh, from Eric Arellano. I proposed to my best friend Brian on Friday while taking his graduation photos. He said yes. Congratulations, Eric and Brian. And and the person who was about Mother's 95th birthday and Mother's Day, that was from Michelle Morgan. Thank you for clarifying it. Bill Snowden says, I am grateful that Dominique is recovering from pneumonia and that it was not COVID-19. I'm so glad in that. France, that's a private one. I'm just making sure that I'm seeing all of the other ones. What great joys in our world. Thank you all for sharing. And now I invite you to send a private chat message also to the panelists to read any sorrows that you may have. And as you do that, a reminder to please let me know if you or a loved one gets sick, or if you find yourself out of work or furloughed with fewer work hours or just in financial challenge. That Ministerial Discretion Fund is there. And I want to know so that I can also just support you. And some sorrows today, want to lift up. Brad says, it's with great sorrow that I learned last night that my brother Kevin, who's 53 years old, has contracted the coronavirus. He is multi-challenged, very vulnerable, and he lives in a supervised group home with substandard supervision and care. Please pray for his recovery. We will be doing that, and we will also be praying for you, Brad. Thank you for sharing. So we have one from Katie, and we've got many Katies. It says Katie J. We are mourning the loss of my partner's father who passed 4 weeks ago. He will be missed forever and is deeply loved. We are sending all of your family love, Katie. And Stephanie Bridell Vigil, our business administrator, says it was 2 years ago today that I had to put my Yorkie down, and I still miss him every day. There is such loss with pets, and that goes with the Miskell family. Amy and Steven said, our 16-year-old Chihuahua, Chiquita, is nearing the end of her life. We have decided we do not want her to suffer, and we will be making that final decision for her this week. So that is rough. Francis says, classes are over, and I'm sad that there's too much unstructured time for the whole family now. And Kim St. Clair shares with us that my father, Pat Rudge, is struggling mightily with a variety of health issues. Fortunately, it's not COVID-19, but he's been in the hospital or skilled nursing for the last 2 weeks, and he's not doing well. Sending you love to your family as well. I also want to, I was wondering if you all were going to post. Smoot and Charlotte Carl Mitchell said that their 12-year-old cat Bagheer died on Friday. We are grieving the loss. And I know that that's, especially in these times, losses of a pet would be really, really hard. I also want to name that on this Mother's Day, that we are grieving for all of the mothers who have lost their sons due to violence and white supremacy culture, including Armand Arbery, who was killed for just jogging in a mostly white neighborhood. But let me just be clear about this. While this death has gotten the attention of white folks, our Black folks know that this happens all the time. And in fact, we didn't even know about it until several months is when it went viral. This was egregious and it was caught on video, but for all of the other times, it is not taped. We pray and we plead for change. All mothers' sons should be safe. And also, I want to, before we get into our meditation and prayer, I want to say some words about the reopening of Arizona and our country. I want to be very clear that UUCP is not opening anytime soon. We will be considerate when we know that it is safe, and it is not safe yet. The cases in Arizona are not subsiding. There is not enough testing. There is no contact tracing to speak of, and our hospitals are still ill-equipped. I can't believe that I have to say this out loud, but our priority is the safety of our community, both our UUCP community and our wider community. The idea that we can just reopen America for business while the pandemic is still in full force is not only ridiculous, it is dangerous and it's irresponsible. And yes, I know that many people are suffering economically, but making the pandemic worse is not going to help them. I will be wearing a mask when I am outside. I hope you will too. If you need access to masks, please reach out and we will help you get one. I can't even believe that wearing a mask is now a political statement, but if it is, I will proudly continue to make my statement that I am pro-safety, pro-community, and pro-saving lives. And one more time, just to be clear, we believe scientists. We believe them when they tell us the safety risks, what is needed to safely congregate, and how dangerous this virus is. I believe scientists far more than the politicians who have lost absolutely so much credibility in my mind and who have made the United States worthy of pity when we should be leaders. I know that I am just one person, but I urge you to also stay at home as much as you are able. I know many of us are getting tired of it, but it's not worth it yet. And if you need to give anyone an excuse, just tell them that your minister said so. Please stay safe. Know that you are not alone, and know that I love you. So now I invite you to a time of meditation and prayer. Center yourselves, take a deep breath, settle wherever you are in your home. Today is Mother's Day. It is a day that is sometimes sweet and sometimes bittersweet. And I am expecting that it may be even more challenging this year. As UUs, we believe in keeping it real. We acknowledge the good and the harm in theologies, justice issues, systems, and more. And I want to acknowledge all of the amazing mothers in this congregation, as well as the amazing mothers that many of you had or have. But I also want to acknowledge that for many people, this holiday is filled with emotions that are complicated and sometimes even painful. So here is a blessing for you, adapted from the words of Linda Susan Ulrich. For all the mothers and the mother figures, the grandmothers, aunts, and extended family members who mother, the soon-to-be mothers, the wish they were mothers, the never wanted to be mothers, the it's complicated mothers. For those who worry about their mothers, and for the mothers who worry about you. For the mothers who are overwhelmed with full-time mothering and working and teaching. The birth mothers, the foster mothers, adoptive mothers, stepmothers. The used to be dad mothers and the more than one mom mothers. the people who mother in 100 million ways, whether or not they have the title. The single mothers, the separated mothers, stay-at-home mothers, unhoused mothers. The I would have been with you if not for a pandemic mothers. The grieving mothers, those who grieve their mothers, and those whose grief is complex. For all the communities that mother, and for all who depend on the great mother, you are held and beloved. Join me in a moment of silence. Amen. Blessed be. And Ashe. For a special treat today, we have UU musician and activist Jim Scott, who is sharing his own pandemic version of our opening hymn, Gather the Spirit. We've received Jim's permission and have paid him for his artistic work. Enjoy his rendition.
I wrote this song 30 years ago so my friend Pat LaManna could give it this contemporary message. Gather in spirit, not face to face. Let's do what we can to flatten the curve. Wash your hands often and don't touch your face. This virus is something no one deserves. Gather on Skype, gather on Zoom, gather by phone with family and friends. Gather online, but don't leave your room. Let's all stay safe until this crisis ends. Gather on Facebook, but not for too long. There's so many ways to sweeten the time. Take a crochet, write a new song, read a good book, bake brownies sublime. Gather on Skype, gather on Zoom, gather by phone with family and friends. Gather online, but don't leave your room. Let's all stay safe until this crisis ends. Gather in spirit, pray for the scared, the sick and the poor.
Let's turn now to the topic this week of the in-between space. When I was thinking about the space that we find ourselves in today, I was reminded of a sermon our former interim minister, Reverend Margaret, gave, in which she referenced a trapeze artist. It's an image that stuck with me of the time between when we let go of one trapeze bar and we enter into free fall before safely grabbing hold of the next rung. As I recall, the message was that we have to fully let go of one thing before we're able to move on to the next, trusting that we'll be able to grab hold and that we'll survive that sometimes panic-inducing in-between space. I had been through a number of recent work and life transitions around that time, and I remember calling my mom after that service to share with her the trapeze imagery. She sent me this little guy, a little trapeze artist on a charm, and he now sits on my desk as a reminder to embrace the uncertainty and the growth that can come with taking a risk and moving outside my comfort zone. So that's all great, but what's different today is that none of us chose to let go of our pre-COVID trapeze bar, and we don't have any control over when we'll be able to grab onto the next one. And I don't know about all of you, but that lack of control thing is really, really hard for me. So I'm trying to find the things that I can control, like limiting my media consumption first thing in the morning and making sure that I get some fresh air every day. It's a reminder that the things I can control are in the here and now, and that they are related to me and to my actions. Much as I would like, I can't control the actions of others, and I can't control how fast our post-COVID world arrives. But I can pay attention to the choices I'm making and how I'm moving through this time and place, making the best choices I can to take care of myself and to contribute to the world that I want to live in now and when this is all over.
Thank you, Amy. I'm already hearing from some of you that you noticed my new environment. I'm in the same room, but just in a different corner, mixing it up a little bit. So 25 years ago, right now, I was pregnant with my first child. I was scared to death. At that time, before that child was born, I had a dog named Bailey. You could say that she was truly my first child. She was a gorgeous chocolate Labrador retriever. I got her as an 8-week-old puppy. And Bailey for me was that dog. You know, the one that I wanted to get a house for because I wanted a backyard for her. Many people said that I got the house because I wanted the dog. They weren't wrong. She got a whole room in the house for her crate and her toys and her bedding. I took her to the pond almost every night so she could fetch sticks in the water because it made her so darn happy. I came home at lunchtime from my work to take her for a walk and check on her. She went with me on car rides, even if I was just running to the bank. Yeah, that was a thing that we did back then. She was definitely my first, and at the time, only child. So fast forward a little bit, Bailey is maybe 4 and I'm pregnant, you know, like with a human child. Actually, I was really pregnant, like 7.5 and 8 months pregnant. It was a Saturday and I was going into work to catch up on some things. And I brought Bailey with me because after all, it was Saturday, they would never know. We were in the car and I was on the exit ramp, and it was one of those, you know, you get off and then it goes in a tight circle and comes around, you know, the ones that you have to slow down for. And I was turning and Bailey somehow slipped and stepped on the automatic window opener in the back seat. She lost her balance and she flew out the backseat window into that big open area in the middle of the off-ramp. Not onto the highway, but dangerously close to it. So you all, I stopped my car in the middle of the exit ramp. I ran out of the car crying and yelling for her. So I want you to picture this huge, waddling, pregnant lady crying and screaming for a dog that was scared out of her mind, running around in the grassy area in the middle of the exit ramp. It was a sight to see. So Bailey ended up being fine, and I'm eternally grateful for the woman who pulled up behind me and who happened to have dog treats in her car, and the screaming pregnant lady in the middle of the road didn't seem to bother her that much. Y'all, I was a mess. How could I possibly keep a human child alive when I couldn't even manage to keep my dog safely in the car? For me, pregnancy was the epitome of being in liminal space. Liminal space is that space in between two things, and it can be very disoriented. I was no longer just a dog's mom, but I wasn't yet a human's mom. I was, but in a really like you're inside of me and I don't really know what this is kind of way. I was in this scary in between not knowing space. Although people had gone through this for thousands of years, I hadn't. I had no idea what was coming. All that I knew was that my past life had changed and that my upcoming life would be different. So many aspects of my life were in transition, and I didn't know how it would work out. So I want you to think, what have your liminal spaces been? Maybe a time when you're done with one job, but you haven't quite started a new one. A time when you're in between relationships or building a new relationship with yourself. A time when you have left one religion and are wandering, looking for meaning. I'll tell you another liminal time for me. Last year at this time, I said yes to being your minister. And then I said, I'll see you in 3 months. We had said hello, but it wasn't a full hello yet. I still had to go back and pack, and we had to sell our house and get our current animal menagerie out here to Phoenix. We were totally in the in-between. And I know that the congregation was too. Liminality can be used in regards of time, of people, religion, myth-telling. Next week, we have some wonderful folks who will be talking to us about thresholds in their lives, liminal spaces of transitions. Sometimes people talk about liminal space to describe political and cultural change. During liminal times, traditions and rituals may change or become uncertain, and future outcomes, once taken for granted, may be thrown into doubt. Does that sound familiar? Do you know of any cultures that may be in liminal space right now? Yeah, I think that's all of us right now. I had someone ask me this week that we need to determine whether this pandemic is a blizzard, winter, or an ice age. So let's think about that. A blizzard, it's a very intense storm, zero visibility, and we need to take shelter immediately. It's very disorienting, but a blizzard usually only lasts for a few days, relatively short time. So winter, you can go out, but not for long. The conditions are difficult and we need to both prepare and settle in. Winter, at least up north, I know it's a metaphor for us here, can feel like it's a long time, but we know that spring will eventually come in a few months. Or is this an ice age? Something that will essentially change the face of the earth, dramatically change how species relate to each other, and at least in the last one was the demise of some forms of life. What are we in? A blizzard? Winter, or an ice age? At the beginning, I really hoped it was a blizzard, but I quickly wrapped my head around it being winter. That middle week of March, oh, it definitely felt like a blizzard. But now I realize it was just the onset of winter. But I wonder, are we at the beginning of an ice age? If we could be magically transported back to the ice age, would we be able to name it as such? Or would we just have felt like it was an unusually cold and long winter? And that's the thing, we don't know. We will only know when we're on the other side of it all and can look back with some clarity. And we can try to fight that. We can try to predict it and prognosticate it. We can cite our statistics and we can make our informed predictions. But that's all they are at this point, is predictions. Or we can accept that we don't know right now, and we can enter into that liminal space fully informed. I'm not asking you to like being in the in-between, but I can encourage you not to fight it. Believe me, fighting it is exhausting. In religion, liminal space has a central focus in many religions. It's actually a desired place in many religious contexts. In meditation, we strive to be in liminal space, of being in the world, but not totally in it, to be letting go. Moments of ecstasy may be liminal space, that of hearing a great piece of music in a live setting or having a rousing surge of energy. But liminal space can also be the space of intense grief, of being so overwhelmed by it, and that place and time cease to exist. Earth-based traditions revere liminal spaces. They can be sunsets or sunrises, creating that space in between night and day, or the equinoxes as we transition from winter to summer and back again. Eckhart Tolle created a whole movement around liminal space that wasn't new to him, but of being in the now, not being in the past as it was done, and not being too much in the future that hasn't come yet. Actually, I think that's good learning to lean on. We know that the past is gone. As my kids say when I pull out all my great dance moves, Mom, we can't unsee that. Yeah, we can't unsee Corona. Even when I see commercials of groups of people gathering in small spaces, I cringe now. I see the air as a fantastical medium of germ-carrying molecules. I'm spending so much energy just thinking about the process of getting groceries. Things we once took for granted are now thrown into doubt. Our oblivious past is gone. And the future, who knows? We may as well ask a magic 8-ball. That reference will only be known for certain generations. How long will this last? What impact? What changes? What systems will be changed? What new world orders? How will we personally be changed? I am in liminal space right now as much as I was when I was waiting for my child to arrive. I could not have known then what motherhood would entail with him. Laughter like I've never experienced before, heartbreak like I couldn't imagine, learning more about myself than I ever would think possible. In some ways, I'm really glad I didn't know. If a dog falling out of a car scared me so much, imagine what the reality of motherhood would have done to me. We are now in liminal space. We can fight it or we can embrace it. We can dwell on the past and worry about the future, or we can be in the right now. We can rationalize it or we can see it as a spiritual exercise of being in the in-between. I am not saying this will be easy, my beloveds, but I'm going to try to embrace the liminal space. And I'm going to watch how I can be transformed by it. I hope you will join me. So might it be.
our closing hymn, thank you, Christine. That was a wonderful sermon. Our closing hymn by Canadian UU songwriter Joyce Poley is about not giving up, continuing to care and move forward into wherever we're going, one step, word, prayer, and song at a time. Feel free to sing with me. The lyrics will be in the chat. One more step, we will take one more step till there is peace for us, and everyone will take one more step. One more word. One more word. We will say one more word till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word. One more prayer. One more prayer. We will say one more prayer till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer. One more song. We will sing one more song till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Benji. Before our closing words, I'd like to invite you to coffee hour after service. I'm telling you all, these coffee hours are way more attended than any coffee hour we ever had in the Johnson room. So please join us. We will be going to a different Zoom room where we'll be able to meet as a large group for a minute to say hi. And then those who want will be going into small breakout groups for a little bit more conversation that people have really seemed to love. So, and we get to go and visit each of them. So we will put the Zoom website and room in the chat. We'll also have it in the final slide. And if it's easier, then you can also go through the link and Compass. If you find Compass, you'll see the title. You can just click on that, and that's a way to go to it as well. There is also a coffee hour just for our kiddos and our family. And as always, our YRUU folks will be leaving for their own gathering. If you're a visitor, please come in and join us. We're a friendly bunch. It's good to see each other. It's fun to just be with people. I promise we're not scary. So as we contemplate the liminal spaces of our days, in between initial news and vaccine, in between symptoms and diagnosis, in between together and together again, in between hugs and certainty and in-person and normalcy. We honor the in-between in all of our lives and the mysteries it contains. In between, in that space where we wait, notice, feel, breathe, be. We extinguish this chalice. We go in peace. We go in love. Go in safety and wrapped in the love of this community. Amen.